Hi everyone, welcome to the channel, New Yankee Auto Systems. This is Petty Chevy, and in today's episode, we're doing a progress update. It is currently December 12th at 9:15 a.m. It is a very, very cold day at the shop. It's only about 36 ambient degrees outside right now, so there's not really a whole bunch that I'm going to be spending time here. Like I had said before, this space is not equipped with heat, so I'm going to try and do a quick run through of all my progress to show new viewers and old viewers what I've been up to with the Petty Chevy in the meantime since the last time I've given you a progress update. Keep in mind that I will have weekly videos still out there showing you step by step the things that I am viewing and doing. However, I have done a lot of stuff off camera just between the job that I had and trying to make time for my space in the shop. Filming was not a priority at the time. However, things have changed a little bit and I've got a little bit of time that I can come back and show you guys a little more of what I'm doing. So let's get started. First things first, and most prominent on the progress update, I have been working on the interior switch controls for all of my electronics for the outside, such as the headlights, the turn signals, the brake lights, and just in general how everything's laid out. I did find a control panel that I feel like will suit my purposes very well. I've been working on getting everything hooked up to that control panel and still maintaining an ability for everything to work. I'm checking my functionality, everything still works. I'm just ditching a lot of extra switches and a lot of extra wiring behind the switch panel that is just cleaned up a lot nicer. This is the control panel and fuse block or module in question. What this does is it gives me 8 different places that I can control different electronic components for the outside of my vehicle or for other purposes. I do still have the turn signal over here on the left, and I'm going to retain that and retain this turn signal indicator to show you that there is in fact a turn signal turned on. This here was set up for my secondary lights or the RoadShox 6-inch LED lights that I had. I'm not sure if I'm going to be maintaining this switch here. I may try to put it over on that switch panel, but there is only very limited amount of space that I can use on that control panel, and there is a certain amperage that I'm going to have to pay attention to. Currently from the left side we have 30 amps on the first 2 poles, and then we have 20 amps moving over, 10 amps, and then 5 amps. I do feel like that gives me enough availability to run the things that I want to run, but I just have to be smart about what I put there. Next up to cover on the progress update is going to be that I decided to move my starter solenoid and my bus bar and everything into the interior cab of the vehicle. I do feel like that it's going to be easier to access because I can just simply slide in under the door and then get under the dash to get at them. As opposed to back here in the rear, I do have all of the closed panels. I have started on mopping those back in. I'm not sure if those are complete yet. I do want to have it so that the left side closed panel is very easy to remove. I don't know exactly how I'm going to do that yet because that will give you access to the battery. Can also give you access to the fuel pump and the fuel filter. So I'm working on those things back there, but I haven't finalized anything just yet. Moving back forward to the interior of the cabin, what we have, I do still have my light switch here. I am going to try and utilize that for one function. I may have to change this over because I do have lights here that are currently on that function, and I did get rid of the connections for it, but this is also going to have to serve for my running lights for the rear. So you may unfortunately have to turn on 2 different sets of lights and then another pull switch for running lights for the rear, but I don't think that's a good way to do it, so I'm going to try and figure out exactly how to do that best. Next, I have simplified the switch panel that was originally with the car. I just have a simple ignition switch on that literally only provides power for this starter button here. So it's going to be kind of like a 3-step procedure to get the vehicle started. We're going to have our battery disconnect down there. So if the battery is not connected, good luck. Then we have our general overall kill switch here, the push button functionality, and then turn to release. Once that battery is hooked up and this button is turned to release, it then allows power to come up to this ignition switch for one position. Turn the ignition switch on, then you would end up turning your fuel pumps on, and then you can start to hit your starter. Additionally, the rest of that wiring is starting to get cleaned up underneath. It is still a bit of a jumbled mess. I'm going to try and get a light in here and show you guys a little better of what I have going on. So now underneath of the dash, you'll see that I have a mess of things going on here. Using the handheld is kind of just making it a little hard to really tell exactly how everything is in here, but that's okay. It's what I've got going on. So I have to start with power comes in on this big cable here, and then goes to my junction block or fuse block that I have here. Let's see if I can't cut that wire out of the way. Goes to this junction block, and then main power from the junction block goes off to the starter solenoid. This is my starter solenoid signal wire to command it to actually turn on, actually start going. The solenoid is separate from the starter, so solenoid's out here, starter's out there. This gray wire is what actually feeds the starter out to the rest of the vehicle. Secondly, I have this main wire coming off where that other junction is, and that comes over to a main 60 amp breaker. That 60 amp breaker feeds the rest of this control module. So power comes in from this control module, and then negative will go out from the control module out to the junction block, and that is on this pole here. It is a little difficult to see, but this is my main negative return from the module. And then I have a negative ground strap that goes from this side of the junction block out to the body. That negative terminal comes here to the front of the lollipop gusset, where I've welded on a nut to be able to hold that ground terminal in place. I do still retain the ability to use this bus bar and junction block as a functionality for everything else that I need to tie into it when it's just basically accessory power on, if you will. This is a hardwired line to the brake signal switch, so my brakes will get power anytime that that switch 1 closes and anytime that the kill switch is in operation. The next thing I have is my turn signal and horn kits. This wiring is going to have to get cleaned up a little bit better. I'm not particularly happy about how those bends are or how tight these wires crimp, but it's a work in progress. Next up, I have the rest of the dash panel, which is relatively the same as how it came in, minus this control panel and additions such as the lighting system, the horn button, the turn signal button, and the additional driving lights over there. Like I said, I may try to get those driving lights moved over to this switch system and then get this back to just being what actually pulls the system, but I do like having it better on this system here. So I may just tie in the rest of the running light system with this control panel as well. So that's the biggest major update for the progress on Petty Chevy as far as the lighting and interior controls. I am trying to work with and making that a better creature comfort functionality instead of a million extra switches. I'd rather have this control panel that has it labeled what the switches are all in one place if I can help it. This car is still very much a learning curve for me, so I'm figuring out exactly how I want to do things with this car, but I think this is a better direction to go instead of all of those extra switches. Moving on to the rest of the exterior of the car, I do have some updates there as well. The biggest update primarily is that I have fixed a front bumper horn to the vehicle. I ended up just deciding that I was going to go ahead and weld it to the frame. I did go through, weld everything together, just do a quick shake test to make sure everything was in place, and I do know that I don't have a great weld here or in some other places. Just bear with me, I'm still an amateur at that. But this bumper horn did give me the availability to be able to bolt the front bumper off and on to the car. Now, there are still some stylistically different things that are going to happen with this bumper and structural. One, this flimsy section of the bumper is not super great for me. So I want to see if, one, I can try and tie it in from lower to top to make it a little more rigid, less flexing, and then see if there isn't a way to tie that back into the rest of the bumper. Not sure if I'm going to be able to do that or not. Next thing that's going to happen is some kind of closeout system up the front here, because I have decided I am not going to run the rest of the Jeep bumper on the front of it. As much as I thought it would look cool, one, I can't really pull it off right now. I just don't have the patience or time to figure it out. So I'm just going to go in a different direction, something that I think that I can do. What I have found is there are random air conditioning parts across in the field over there, or at least in the scrap section of the farm. I've been told I can use whatever I want as long as I don't think it's going to be something that they actually need. So what I found, there is what looks like this little grill system that, I don't know, is supposed to cover something on the air conditioning, possibly. What I'm thinking about doing is using this section and segmenting it and getting it mounted to cover that section right there. I think it'll look pretty slick. If I can pull it off, it's a little easier for me to do. However, that does also mean that since I'm no longer going to have a fascia cover on this, I am going to have to get back in here and clean this weld flat. I did paint everything here already once just to kind of try and protect it. The paint on it isn't finished because also the metal work on isn't finished either. I'd rather have the paint on there to protect from a little bit of extra rust and come back later and remove it, because this car, where it's sitting, does get rust. You will see that the rotors have become rusty from sitting. Now, hopefully this is just enough surface rust that I can get off with a wire wheel. It is kind of already changing as I rub across it, so I think it is just surface rust. It should be fine. If I do have to take that somewhere and get machined, I will, but other spots are starting to rust as well. Unfortunately, it's just a byproduct of where I'm working. I don't have anywhere better to work right now. So other things that are going to be needed to be done: clean up the headers. I do have some flame-proof paint that I want to use on those. Figure out where these headlights are going to go. Figure out a fender system. I would like to do a floating fender system, and I do have an idea that I would also like my road shock lights to be part of that floating fender system. So what that's going to mean is as you turn the wheels with the headlights on, they're going to kind of be able to paint the direction of where you're going with light. I think that'd be pretty cool. So that's what I'm going to work on. Other things that I've been working on is getting the front driving lights on. I do have the front driving lights connected to the vehicle. They are behind the grille like I originally wanted them to be. It's not the greatest, but I worked with what I had and I'm learning from it. I do still think that it looks pretty slick though. Other things that I've been working on Petty Chevy include more electrical revisions for more cables that I keep running for all of these other components. I kind of keep going back and changing the electrical just so that everything can nest in there a lot better. Trying to limit my use of cable ties unless it's tying cables to another cable loom, and then ultimately taking a bigger cable loom and Velcro taping those together or Velcro strapping those together. You guys may have seen I have those small and large Velcro straps that I absolutely love to use. Gives you the ability to hold something together, and if it doesn't work great, unzip it, change your mind, go ahead and change it, as opposed to a cable tie. You put it on, doesn't work, clip, you've done wasted it. So those are the other things that I'm working on the exterior. I do still have my turn signal wiring to figure out. The turn signals, I don't know exactly where I'm going to put those yet. I have an idea for those to be on the fender as well. I don't know if I have enough wiring to reach all of that or for it to flex with the fender as it turns. That would be another thing to figure out, but maybe just too much for this build. There are still a lot of things about Petty Chevy that does have to get finalized or completed. I am working on some other stylistic cues. I am working on my electrical and other things that I absolutely need for the vehicle to run. Hopefully, I will be able to figure out the busted up fuel pump and get the vehicle started again and be able to be at least road test worthy. But in that aspect, I would like to have my turn signals figured out. At least something temporary that I can mount up to the vehicle so I can have headlights, or at least driving lights that work so I can be seen, rear running lights, rear brake lights, rear turn signals, and then hopefully maybe soon I can test drive the vehicle and see how everything feels and go from there. Otherwise, Petty Chevy's going to keep chugging along in the background. I may have to switch my attention over to the Volunteer car here shortly. I do have to actually get through that car and look at it first, see what it needs, and then develop a game plan for that one as far as how exactly I'm going to make that car street legal and a little more broad strokes, not as custom as Petty Chevy. But stay tuned for all of our videos in the future. Remember that we do have smash cuts available. We have smash cut Redux coming up as well. And then we will have some videos with Volunteer and some more videos with Petty Chevy and anything else that we find that is entertaining and worth relating to you guys, so to keep you watching. Remember to like and subscribe to New Yankee Auto Systems and follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/New Yankee Auto, where we try to keep a little more of our current up-to-date progress of the builds, vehicles, and what we're getting into. But until next time, have a good one, guys.